Cedar smoke twists under a high golden ceiling. Light cuts the air into measured lanes. I stand in the cool seam where shine meets shadow, listening without moving as voices surge and fall like a tide I do not trust. Names flow across the polished floor as living script. I read them like stress tests. Who breaks early, who only pretends to hold. Fault lines glitter waiting for a fingertip. Most faiths are shells that love the sun. A quiet question turns every head. Consider the man in us. I feel the hall lean toward the answer it expects from me. I offer a different one, a smile that promises arithmetic. Love that lives on comfort is not love. Remove the padding and you will meet the truth. I ask for the hedge to drop, not his breath, only the buffers that make blessing feel inevitable. Rules draw their borders in the air, clean, bright, necessary. I nod. I have no interest in ending stories, only in stripping them to what they actually are. Permission settles like the pause before music. Nothing shouts. Everything sharpens. The choir resumes its long horizon of sound. I slip backwards, swallowed by shadow, satisfied. The hall fades to corridor, then to a sky the color of burned coin. Outside, heat smells of clay and iron, and somewhere far below, a town exhales in its sleep. Grain swells in quiet barns. Sheep nose each other in drowsy rows. Laughter threads through a house where oil lamps keep gentle watch. No one senses the draft beneath the door. I walk the old roads no mortal sees. Stones remember footprints I have not made and still recognize. The plan is a chain of small inevitabilities, each link cool in my hand. Before dawn, I pause at the edge of the day to ask myself one last time, if the hedge falls, does love fall too? The question hums like a taut string. Riders gather at the edge of vision, small as gnats against too much sky. Then the field recognizes them, grain kneels, cattle scatter, and a servant's shout turns into a red vowel that doesn't finish. The boy on the stone forgets how to be tall. One man lives. He runs the ridge path where thorn bushes try to hold his robe. Sandals slap like wet cloth. He counts the things he has to say and discovers numbers were never this heavy. Fire arrives with the politeness of a guest that doesn't knock. A seam opens in the blue, light unrolls. Sheep go white, then nothing. A woman throws water into brightness and makes a scream of steam. The ash-smeared messenger starts his speech before he can see the house. He edits with every breath fewer adjectives, more facts. Something a man can survive hearing without breaking on the doorstep. 3 prongs of dust bloom around a caravan. Camels bawl, then kneel into ropes. A clerk tries to save the ledger with his body and adds his own entry to the ruin. From far off, it looks choreographed. The third messenger spits blood and paper fibers. He tucks his seal into his belt, the smallest dignity not yet stolen. He runs crooked like a kite cut free of its string. At the eldest's house, cousins reach for the same note and laugh at the collision. The wind tries doors, finds the one that answers, and wanders room to room as if taking inventory. Beams hum like low music. The table lifts an inch, then remembers gravity. Walls settle into a tilt that becomes a choice. Dust performs its soft magic, making everyone the same color. Silence finds the courtyard before the messenger does. A cup circles itself to sleep. A fig thuds into dirt that will taste like grief later. Someone says a name and nobody answers. 4 messengers meet at one man's threshold, each carrying a piece of absence. I wait in the unlit corner where the floor is cool. Loss has emptied its pockets. What word is left for the man who must reply? The courtyard holds its breath. 4 messengers stand like fence posts, shoulders caved, eyes lowered. A chipped cup rests near the threshold, done with movement. I take the shadowed corner the sun forgot, measuring the quiet in to see if it contains any bargains. Job's hands hesitate at his chest, then find the robe's seam. The rip sounds like bark peeling. Threads leap and hang. He sways once, not from weakness, but from choosing, like a tree deciding which way to fall. Neighbors arrive and stop mid-step. One woman grips a water jar and does not remember why. The men stare at their sandals as if humility were suddenly heavy. A lamb bleats, offended that silence makes it important. At the hearth, ash waits like an old chore. Job kneels into it, palms flat, and lifts gray across his cheeks. It looks like weather he puts on deliberately. A servant offers a knife. Job takes a shard of clay instead. Hair falls in commas, punctuation, for a sentence no one wants to read. The shard clicks against his skull with each stroke. Small writes in a large room. He does not wince, he does not hurry. He finishes and exhales. He lowers himself to the ground with order, not collapse. Forehead to dust, he speaks the math of existence. Empty hands in empty hands, out gifts between. The courtyard hears it and becomes a different place. I check the air for a curse. None arrives. He blesses the name with the voice people use to close shutters or bank a fire. It is not performance. It is maintenance. The messengers look almost angry at being outlived by a sentence so plain. Lamps open their eyes along the walls. The day shrinks to a soft square. Ash grits under knees. The smell is kitchen sweet and funeral cool at once. I stand very still, refusing to disturb the clean geometry of failure. His wife touches his shoulder and withdraws fingers, unsure what they touched. Her face carries exhaustion like a bruise. I file away the scene. Love that refuses to bargain has made itself inconvenient. Night folds the courtyard. I count remaining instruments and find one waiting with its case closed, pain without exit. I whisper the old proverb to myself, skin for skin, and taste iron in the words. Before the first star, I leave the wall and the quiet man who blessed instead of bartered. Ash lies calmly where he pressed it. Tomorrow will need a different weather. I intend to bring it. Gold wakes the hall. Incense braids the light. I stand where shadow trims the radiance to a careful edge and wait for the room to finish, pretending I am a surprise. We all know why I have come back. Skin for skin, I say, and the syllables land like metal, clean, irreversible. I speak of what men really trade when they are cornered by hurt. Not coins, not titles, not even names. Comfort for breath. An answer draws itself in air, a human outline framed by bright boundaries. Spare his life. This far and no farther. The hall trusts limits. I do too. A game without fences isn't a game, it's boredom. I name my choice, no storm, no sword. I ask for weather that lives inside the hum of raw nerves, heat, without flame, sleep that forgets how. Pain with no theater, precision, not fireworks. The choir's horizon sound returns. Clerks turn pages. I step backward into shadow, polite as a guest leaving the front room. The work I admire never needs an audience. Gold drains into stone along the corridor. The sky outside is ordinary on purpose. Buckets lift. Animals disagree about nothing. A clean day makes a better control sample. Ooze breathes. I match its rhythm and descend. The courtyard holds yesterday's ash like a faint map. The door's hinge sighs and means it. No one notices the colder corner. He sleeps with the careful stillness of someone who earned it. I examine the distance between his rest and the curriculum I intend to teach his nerves. The inches are small, the lesson is long. I hold no malice. It wastes signal. I am weight and witness. If love stands on ache, it stands truer. If it falls, then the fall is data, and I accept it the way a scale accepts an object. I touch nothing. Naming sets the mechanism moving. Tomorrow will arrive with a heat that does not glow. He will count motions like coins and spend none he does not have to. The boundary hangs bright over all of it. Spare his life. I agree. Life may stay. I have other questions. Heat gathers on the road to the gate. The ash heap sits like a sleeping animal, ribs rising. Job takes the broken step as if it were assigned. I keep to the narrow shade a wall allows, letting the day teach him in its teacher's voice. Pain opens with small manners, a sting, a tick, a pulse, then grows industrious. Fever warms the edges of thought until edges blur. Chairs scrape in the mind as piety rearranges itself, trying to face the door. He picks a pottery shard from gray drift and tests its edge with his thumb. Scrape, pause, breathe. The skin argues in red syllables. He replies in a language made of patience and grit. Flies collect like punctuation. A cobbler passes with the sandal he hasn't finished, stops, and nods to the ground. Respect or fear of catching sadness, either counts as distance. The beggar from last week studies a cloud and forgets to thank the man who once remembered his name. Dogs circle, tasting air. One lies down within arm's reach, a loyalty that costs nothing and feels like a lot. Job strokes its ear with the clean hand and returns to the lesson the shard insists on. His wife brings a cloth wet from the cistern. She lays it on his neck, then says the thing Mercy says when it is tired, and this: let go of integrity, choose release. She is asking for oxygen in a sealed room. He answers gently, gentleness should not survive here, yet it does. We received what was sweet, he says. This is bitter. Both came through the same door. The words fall without seeking applause and refuse to curdle into self-pity. He bends again to the work of staying. Ash adheres to sweat. The shard clicks through its small circle. Children edge closer, eyes wide, then run, because running is what their legs remember best. The gate counts witnesses, traitors, shepherds, a clerk who needs a reason. All learn how to look at suffering without staring. The day lowers its light, relieved to delegate to night. I listen for the bargain waking under his breath, and hear only breath. Pain has stripped the room to studs. No deal appears behind them. Tomorrow, 7 silent days will arrive like a blanket. For now, he holds. 3 figures crest the road, silhouettes against a noon that forgives nothing. Staff, broad shoulders, neat hair. They slow in the way people slow when grief has a radius they can feel. The ash heap brightens under them like a map remembering its lines. Cloth tears a sound like small thunder. Dust rises, settles in their beards, makes everyone kin to the same field. They sit without asking where. Eyes go low. Hands learn how to fold. Job's breathing sets the room's metronome. Flies draft a new nation on the air. A dog chooses the shade of Job's knee and guards it with sleep. The shard rests between strokes. Water arrives in 2 cups, one to drink, one to wash. Dignity keeps its rituals even when chairs are gone. Night flips the courtyard to a softer side. Lamps stitch commas along plaster. Eliphaz inhales a sentence, then edits it back to silence. Bildad watches constellations like policy. Zophar counts knuckles, rehearsing arguments that nobody has earned the right to hear. Neighbors set bread and dates within reach and walk away on purpose. Thank you would cost too much. Job nods a nod from another century. His wife tucks a mat into the thin stripe of shade and refuses to let tears make sound. Silence works like anesthesia first. It dulls, then it reveals the wound's exact border. Eliphaz studies wrinkles like marginalia. Bildad polishes a stone into a principle. Zophar's jaw builds a pulpit out of bone. A small crowd gathers and then remembers to be smaller. The 3 make a wall of legs and shoulders, not to keep danger out, but to keep staring out. The dog twitches, chasing a rabbit no one else can see. The 5th day's wind arrives with an attitude cool at first, then mean. Pain sticks to its lesson plan. Job's breathing budgets itself, paying in small coins. The friends look like bowls left out in steady rain, heavier every hour. By the 6th, kindness wants words to hang on and cannot find nails. The arguments assemble in their eyes, courteous tools laid on a clean cloth, cause, effect, confession, repair. I admire the order and distrust the math. The 7th evening sits down early. Even the gate is tired of being a gate. Job lifts his head not to speak, but to listen for something he cannot name. 3 friends lean forward. Silence lifts its hands from the wheel. Night scrubs the day from us and leaves a crisp seam of cold. Lamps blink along walls. Hills collect themselves into a single dark shoulder. Job climbs carefully, one negotiated step at a time. I take the margin where the dark has depth and time keeps its voice low. Behind him, arguments trail like discarded scaffolds. Cause-effect, confession, repair, clean tools with no purchase on fevered skin. The neat friend keeps a sentence in his teeth. The tall one watches the horizon as if direction were destiny. Wind plays fig leaves like a stringed thing and numbers the stones with its fingers. A shepherd's lantern wobbles a golden river below. Job sits at the ridge, palms up as if asking the night to weigh them and return exact change. He argues with absence and finds a presence shaped like promise. A ledger no one can cook. A witness that won't take payment. He doesn't preach, he assembles. Hope arrives as carpentry. He says a line about a living redeemer without turning it into a banner. It sounds like remembering a doorway in a house long gone. The words stand up on their own and refuse to be shushed. The broad friend polishes a stone into a rule. The neat one prepares grammar like a small knife. Logic hates being asked to kneel. Job does not see them. He is furnishing a room inside his ribs. With a shard's point, he draws a circle and a road through it. If vindication has feet, it will know where to stand. Below, his wife holds the slope with her body and chooses love that stays at the bottom tonight. Stars multiply like someone unstopped a jar. The wind moves higher, cooler. Job speaks of a witness I cannot buy, of eyes that will one day see what faith only fingers now. He asks not for escape, but for meaning. I keep still. This kind of hope is bad for business. If he is right, then my arithmetic lacks a column. If wrong, the night will compost his vow into silence and feed it to tomorrow. The air far off changes temperature as if a door opened somewhere. The hills rehearse themselves. Job closes his eyes, then breathes like a man who heard a verdict. Nobody has written yet. I mark the sky for weather. The day flinches. Heat drops its keys. Birds stall mid-idea. Job stands in open ground while his friends gather at the edges, arguments suddenly shy around their owners. I wait where dust begins to think about becoming sky. Wind threads the field from wrong directions at once. Dust tries on a spine and likes the look. The gate far off clicks, then forgets why. A fig leaf turns and keeps turning. The voice arrives without needing thunder for a body. It asks where foundations learned their measurements, who stitched the horizon's seam, who told morning where to pour itself. The questions carve daylight in a precision. Job listens like a man counting his own pulse after a fall. He tests the rhythm and finds it steady. He raises one hand halfway between shielding and adoring and lets it hover there until the choice dissolves. Eliphaz's staff becomes wood again, which is to say, honest. Bildad's polished stone shines like only a pebble can. Zophar's jaw loosens, forgetting the sermon it rehearsed. Rules look like flat drawings beside a speaking storm. The sea remembers its leash and stops just short of arrogance. Mountains sit up straighter. A hawk rides a pocket of air that did not exist a moment ago. Everything behaves as if watched gladly. The questions keep coming, not to humiliate, but to scale the room. Where were you when light learned its job? Who opened Snow's storeroom? Job answers correctly by not answering at all. I inventory my instruments and discover they are props here. No subtraction helps, no scarcity bites. The voice does not buy, sell, or trade. It shows, and showing is sufficient. The column loosens its shoulders. Air becomes ordinary again, but larger on the inside. Dust settles with good manners. Job lowers his face to earth, and the earth feels promoted. Silence returns without being empty. Birds take up their grammar where they left off. The friends look like men who have been unburdened of explanations. I step back and admit to myself that wonder is a poor place to make a living. The town smells like stone after rain, though no rain fell here, only elsewhere. The gate swings as if relieved. Stalls open wider than necessary. I stand where shadow thins and tally the losses that refuse to become definitions. Healing arrives like a polite visitor on time unannounced. Fever loosens its jaw. Pain forgets a few verbs. Skin rehearses being ordinary and remembers the lines. The ash heap nods at him as at a retired worker. A neighbor's roof needs work. Job steadies the ladder and keeps count of reeds. Young men climb, glad to be helpful to someone who once helped them. Gossip tries to arrive and fails, embarrassed by usefulness. At the market, a merchant counts badly on purpose. Job clears his throat, touches the stack, and the math straightens like a spine. A shared smile finishes the correction. The dog adopts the town as if promoted. Children invent errands that require passing his gate twice. They leave louder than they arrived, proud of laughter as a delivery. His wife places bread to cool and lets her shoulders drop 2 notches. Tired, yes, but the kind that sleeps. He sets a table for the 3 friends and serves them with sentences that do not sting. A prayer adjusts the room like a carpenter's square. Something in the air sets and arguments drift to the corners like old chairs. Far slopes thicken with animals. Lambs bump everything that stands still and apologize by bleating. Shepherds complain about prices they can afford to complain about. The world loves its small disagreements again. He sits beneath a fig tree whose leaves remember weather. The stars seem improperly close. He counts mercies unlisted, unmonetized, and lets scars be landmarks rather than warnings. I find that development professionally inconvenient. I listen for rot in the root and hear only water moving. The center that should have hollowed did not. He is less available to certain kinds of trades. I do not admire this, but I note it. Morning will keep arriving with tasks that matter and do not perform mending, measuring, checking weights. These are immune to spectacle. I count them, then stop counting. The storm laundered more than air. Between fields and fences, roads, forget who owns them. I walk those margins. Ooze hums vendors' animals. A child scolded kindly. My work likes noise. Noise is leverage. Today noise is only noise. The old tools sit in my mind like polished knives. Subtraction, delay, absence. I reach and stop. Somewhere a man measures grain for a widow and laughs poorly. The sound does not fracture. I count my wins and find too many. Corruption is drought-resistant. Fear is cheap. Vanity seeds itself. Yet one account refused my arithmetic, and now my books do not close as easily as they once did. Night arrives like a steward who knows every hinge. Lamps trim themselves. Doors lift gently. The gate sighs a friendly syllable. Even the stray dog chooses a post with dignity. Old soldier under a new flag. I pass the fig tree where stars once felt close. The house has learned a quieter grammar. Bread cools without flinching. Someone hums a tune with room in it. This is the kind of order I cannot counterfeit. On the ridge, the sky pretends to be ordinary and fails. Ordinary is wholly under different management. I try to sharpen myself on resentment and find the whetstone missing. Here is the confession I do not sign. I envy what I cannot buy. Not livestock or laughter, but center the part that refused me when I emptied my pockets of weather and weight. I do not retire. My office has no door to lock. I will still press where promises thin and find purchase. Many ledgers will balance my way, some will not. I can live with both. When I meet a house that prays without price, I leave early. Bad market, deep well, rope for strangers. I do not admire it, but I respect the inconvenience. I go on with a new weight under the cloak, call it proof, call it scar. Somewhere a man breathes without bargaining. My craft survives altered by what it failed to undo.